Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're going to talk about IT, the movie. But before we go into that, I had some stuff go on Saturday. Claudia and I got married. We actually eloped, so this is why it kind of came up sort of quick. The overall plan is that we're actually going to have a proper ceremony next year where we're going to invite all of Mexico out to see us and everything like that. We actually have two. The ring is kind of an interesting design, and so we did the wedding bands for Claudia's ring. My ring is just a tungsten kind of thing, which I kind of like. I think is cool. But anyway, the Claudia's ring is actually like it's a 3-piece thing, and so she's got the first 2 pieces now, the engagement ring, and then like one of the wedding bands. Then she'll get the other. We'll put the other half of the wedding band on after the next ceremony. Some of her friends were a little bit upset because they didn't get invited to the elopement, which, you know, is kind of like, aside from the point of the elopement, like the point of the elopement is that it's like small and kind of simple, and the point is we've got all the legal stuff taken care of now, so everything else is just like the celebration of the fact and, you know, gravy on top of the what is essentially the main point of the marriage. But yeah, so anyway, so married now. Wave, Claudia. So yeah. Oh, also, in other news, the My Little Pony movie has premiered their advanced screenings and things like that. I've been seeing news on that. There was some Austrian reviewer, and man, just like kind of a shameful display with that. This Austrian reviewer says he saw the movie, and he gave it kind of a lukewarm review. Like, he wasn't like, you know, I hate this movie, or like, he didn't make like a lot of outlandish claims, or like do anything to indicate that he was like trolling anybody. He was just like, yeah, you know, I mean, like, it seemed like a kid's movie, and didn't really appeal to me, and he's just being like dumped on with all these comments and dislikes, and they're like, oh, he's a liar, he's a secret, you know, a conspiracy, he's not actually seen the movie, it's all a trick. You know, if he'd really seen the movie, he would have given it a 10 out of 10 because it's My Little Pony. And I feel like if he'd actually given it a 10 out of 10, like, no one would be questioning the guy. They'd be like, oh, of course, yes, he saw one of the advanced screenings. Like, of course he would give it a 10 out of 10. Oh, perfect, great, I'm so glad to see. And they'd be posting on, you know, 4chan. They'd be like, see, proof the movie's doing well. Everything's going good. See, this guy saw it. But, you know, he gave a lukewarm review, so everyone's just kind of dumping on him. But he's one of the only people who's given a review of the My Little Pony movie, and I suspect this is because My Little Pony, the movie probably comes across as a kid's movie, and reviewers, like adult reviewers, probably feel they'd have a difficult time examining that. I anticipate that the My Little Pony movie is not going to be like, you know, your Disney fun for the whole family kind of thing. I figure it's probably mostly going to be targeted at kids, and that means that, like, the adults, if there were adult reviewers that have seen it, they probably kind of looked at that and they were like, yeah, you know, cute for the kids. Like, this is all they can really say. And you could, like, dump on a movie like that, but knowing that you're not the intended audience and that it's really just something to entertain your 7-year-old, I mean, like, it's a little bit villainous to really tear into it as a professional reviewer. So, you know, like, I just honestly suspect there's not really a lot of reviews because there's not really a whole lot that reviewers feel they can say, and I also saw at least one website was saying, like, we can't post our review until the movie airs. So, I don't know, there's some lack of clarity as to exactly when reviewers are even allowed to talk about the movie. But, yeah, I don't know, a friend is coming out this October, and we kind of we entertained the idea of whether or not we were going to go see the My Little Pony movie. And if Claudia had wanted to go, then maybe I could have been persuaded. Because if you go with, like, like your romantic partner, I feel like then you kind of, you get fewer eyeballs, like fewer people are going to be like, oh, like, you're a pedophile or whatever, which was another friend of mine. He was like, yeah, the Equestria Girls movie was, like, right in my area, and I did decide to go see it. He's like, yeah, I built up the confidence and I went to go see it, but then I felt really awkward because, like, I was a grown adult man. There was like kids in the theater and, like, parents, and they were kind of like, so he's like, never again. I'm never going to go see a kid's movie like that by myself again. That was just stupid. I regret everything. So yes, without Claudia, I don't think I'm going to go. And I'm not really that thrilled about the idea of going anyway, because I kind of suspect that it's just going to be kind of more of the same, like, modern My Little Pony, but for like an hour and a half. And that's a long time to be sitting in theaters for something that really may not appeal to me all that much. I really may not get that much out of it. So, we'll see. Maybe I'll catch it. Like, maybe it'll go on Netflix or something like that, and I'll watch it. I mean, that's how I watched the Angry Birds movie. Even hearing that Angry Birds wasn't very good. That's how I saw The Secret Life of Pets, I think. I don't know. Like, I sometimes watch awful movies on Netflix when they're on, because I don't have to pay extra to see an awful movie on Netflix, and I can stop it at any time, go do other things. But yes. Anyway, information technology. I went and I saw IT recently, and the people who made IT, they were obviously very confused because there were no computers in the film at all. Like, not a single person accessed a computer. It wound up being about this like clown that he lived in the sewers and ate children. And I'm not sure what that had to do with information technology, but maybe there was some kind of hidden context there where, like, the sewers are kind of like a binary system, like it's a series of tubes, right? And so, the tubes turn on and off, and that way the subway communicates with the children, and it's all very abstract. It's kind of genius in that way. I'm kidding. I've actually seen the original It, the old original one that was kind of, that had the two-parter, where first it was kids and then it was adults. And the more recent, the 2017 It, focuses only on the first part of the movie, which in my opinion was a good idea. In the original film, the way it works is like the kids go through this whole ordeal with the killer clown, and then they think that they've killed the clown, and then they all agree, like, okay, let's come back if it turns out the clown is still alive. And so then it turns out the clown is still alive, so they all come back as like 40-something adults. And then it turns out the clown is a giant spider. And I'd say spoilers, but actually the new movie, it changes some things around. So it's not quite the same. I believe like the same people died, but there weren't really that many deaths in the original, like in the kids section of the movie. Like they didn't like kill off kids so much. They killed like one of the bullies. But the whole thing played out a little bit differently than you would expect. For one, because this is the modern times, they were more open with gore. And so, like, in the original film, they had that little kid, Ralphie? Davy Jones? I don't recall what his name was. Ralphie? Stevie? Potato? Anyway, they had this little kid, Potato, and he goes out in his rain slicker, and he's chasing it's a boat. He's chasing this boat down the gutters, and he's just like, oh no, it's my, like, I lost it down the gutter. And in the original film, like, he runs into Pennywise, and Pennywise is like, oh hey kid, like, you like your boat? You want your boat? Like, I've got balloons. And then he's like, I want my boat back. And then he's like, oh, I've got lots of boats too. I've got tons of paper boats. And the kid's like, oh, do they float? And Pennywise goes, oh yes, they all float. Everything floats down here. We all float down here. And that's where that line comes from of, like, we all float down here, is in the context of this kid asking, like, do your paper boats float? He goes, yeah, we all float down here. It's just this, like, really weird and memorable line from the original. And the new movie, like, they actually kind of run with it. And it was funny because they kept saying it, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, it was, like, the most memorable line from that film, because it was so weird. And I thought it was funny that, like, the new film, like, was kind of fixated on it. They were like, oh, we all float. It's time to float. Let's float, buddy. And Pennywise was kind of fun. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, because I'd seen that, like, Tim Curry playing Pennywise. And Tim Curry in the original, like, playing Pennywise, he's a little over top, and he's a little over the top and crazy, and Pennywise is a clown, and so there's kind of that intended element. But they did a good job of making Pennywise kind of likable in the new film, too. Some people have kind of gone, like, they posted reviews, and they're like, oh, the new film totally missed the point of the old film, and so on and so forth. But I feel like that's maybe giving too much credit to the old film. The old original film, I mean, like, Stephen King is an interesting author, and, like, I've read a bunch of his books. I'm not a big enough fan that I've read all of his stuff, but I've read plenty of stuff that he does. And while he's really interesting and he's really likable, there's or a lot of his stuff is really likable, I don't know that I'd take him so seriously as to be like, well, this is a level of genius or whatever. Like, it's definitely good entertainment, but you have to look at sometimes some of the stuff that he does, and it doesn't always seem like he's totally serious. And like the movie about, like, the cars that came to life. He had this movie where a bunch of trucks came to life, and these people are trapped in a gas station, and then they have to, like, do battle with the trucks. It's just, like, one of those things, like, you have to remember that Stephen King, like, he's a great author, but I don't know that you could always really say that everything he did is just like like you can't adulterate genius. It's kind of like, well, I don't know. I'm there's good elements here clearly, but I'm not sure that you can hold it sacred necessarily. So the new film does some things that are really good. I didn't have any complaints about it. The plot, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially that there's an evil clown that lives in the sewers, like I said, captures children, and kills Ralphie the potato. And in the opening of the film, too, like in the original, Ralphie comes and he's like, oh, we all float. And then, like, he goes to bite Ralphie, and then it cuts away. Like, they don't show the violence. Because in that time, I think that would get you a harsher rating. But in this one, like, on screen, Pennywise just rips this kid's arm off, and then like, drags him under the sewer, and there's, like, blood flowing down the grate. So it's a little bit more gratuitous than the original was. Not constantly. It's not, like, totally vapid and mindless, but there's definitely more blood, more violence. People get killed on screen. It's less implied. The guy with the knife, like, actually does cut people. He doesn't, like, just screw around until he gets caught. But yes, that said, right. So you go on, it's kind of the whole story is kind of like, it's described as a coming-of-age kind of thriller. Like, all these kids are hitting puberty and trying to figure out who they are and overcoming their personal fears. And some of the characters are a little bit more gritty than they were in the original film. I never read the actual book, so I don't know how it compares to the films at all. But one thing that I don't think that they did in the original film was the girl was like a victim of sexual abuse. Like, her father, it was strongly implied, was doing stuff to her, and it's never directly stated, but he's like, you're still my little girl, right? And he's like super creepy about the whole thing. So that was a little bit more gratuitous, and kind of made the girl more sympathetic. It was kind of like she was going through a lot of stuff, and like everyone at school was picking on her, and she had like this awful reputation. Like, her life must have been shit, but she was also the most confident character in the movie, and so I mean, sure enough, like, man, that girl just took a beating throughout the movie. Like, towards the end, Pennywise, like, actually captures her because she's the one with the most confidence. She's, like, motivating the group to go and do things, and so Pennywise is like, yep, that one's gotta go. And so it's just, man, like, just endless suffering throughout this movie. And she stays, like, upbeat throughout the whole thing. That's, like, one of the few things is you're like, man, like, this girl really didn't deserve all the punishment she took. Like, she was not ever... I mean, at no point was she, like, a dislikable character. She was just kind of, she's just like, hey, guys, like, let's be confident. Let's do this. Come on, guys. I have this strong conviction, and I want to do it. And, not condescending, not mean. She was nice to the kid. Like, all the kids were, like, dorky losers and stuff like that, and she was just kind of, like, nice to them. She helped them shoplift at one point. I mean, I guess she had flaws, but they were kind of, like, personal flaws, and ones that you overlooked a little bit because there was so much going on in her life that you could forgive the fact that she smoked cigarettes or shoplifted or whatever. But, yeah, just endless abuse for this poor girl. They had a scene where, like, her bathroom exploded in blood, and I don't remember if this happened in the original, but I thought it was kind of funny because all the kids show up and all the kids could see the blood, but the adults couldn't. And so they're like, I was just kind of thinking about how that would have to be. Like, you just have to, like, go through, like, every morning you get up and you, like, take your shower in your, like, blood-soaked bathroom, and, like, all the adults are just like, all right, be on your way, but, like, all the kids are just at school are like, she's covered in blood. What the crap? But the kids all agreed to get together, and they like, mop up the floors and everything else, and they clean up all the imaginary blood, so all the imaginary blood is gone. And they all have their own little fears and things like that. Except there's one kid, and I believe that in the original, there was, like, one kid who never really openly confronted his fears, and I think that he dies when he gets to be an adult, because he's not sure what to do. And then I think also in the second part, the Jewish kid shoots himself because it was too real for him, and I think that he got grabbed. But then again, like I say, the original is different from the new one. I don't recall the girl being captured in the original one. I think that I think that, like, I do recall them going down there on their own, and they were just, like, in the sewers. In the new movie, it turns out, like, they kept doing this, like, everybody floats thing, and this is a spoiler. It turns out that Pennywise the Clown actually has this, like, nest that he's living in, and, like, there's all these kids, like, their corpses are, like, floating in the air. Like, he's got them magically suspended, so they're actually, like, floating in the air. And I remember, like, after the movie, Claudia had not seen the original film, so she was like, huh, that's really weird. I thought when he kept saying that, like, people float, he meant, like, you know, corpses float in the water. And I was like, yeah, in the original that was what he meant, and he only said it the one time. So yes, we all float down here in the water when we're dead, because I've killed you. But in this particular movie, like, the people, like, the corpses are just literally floating in the air. It's like a crazy supernatural thing. And again, this throws a lot of uncertainty as to what exactly Pennywise is. He comes across as more like a legitimate demon in this new movie, because the stuff that he does is, he shapeshifts a lot, and does all these different things. And in the original movie, he was just a giant spider that was creating fear-based illusions. So when the kids beat up Pennywise, what they were beating up was an illusion. Like, they didn't attack the actual spider. And when they come back as adults, they see the spider for what it is. It's just a great big spider with, like, lights on its chest. And so they throw, like, a rock in the spider's lights, and the spider just dies. It's kind of weird and anticlimactic. But in this one, he comes across as, like, a legitimate demon. Like, Pennywise is actually physically grabbing children and, like, biting into them and sucking their souls out and doing all these kinds of things. So I feel like that's wiser. I feel like that's more suspenseful. And because the adult section of the film is worse, in my opinion, I don't know if we would get an It 2, an Information Technology 2, but it ends well enough where it is. So you could just leave it at Pennywise was the demon, or maybe we'll never know what Pennywise is. There's enough uncertainty because the movies don't follow each other closely enough. That I really couldn't say what exactly the thing was going on with Pennywise. They also played up the clown thing a little bit more, but only a little bit more. I mean, like, Pennywise was always like a wacky clown in both films, but you saw more of, like, the circus stuff and, like, Pennywise doing little routines and things like that. There was also, like, there was one thing that was really creepy where they had this, like, painting, and it was, like, one of those melty face, I can't remember the artist who does this, but it was, like, one of those melty face paintings, like, you know, like the melty watches and whatever, and somebody had, they were playing, like, a clarinet, and they had a melty face, and then that person came to life, and they were, like, running around biting kids, and that was pretty creepy. I think that was, of all the things that Pennywise assumed the form of, that had to be the most unsettling. And I feel like the Jewish kid was totally fair to be unnerved by that. I mean, like, if that showed up in, like, my little, like, work area while I was trying to put books away, like, man, I would be afraid to go back in my work area as a grown adult. I would just be like, no, you don't understand, there was a noodle man. There was a noodle man with a clarinet and giant teeth. And it was terrible. Like, she had boobs. It was a noodle woman. A noodle woman. It's all terrible either way. It doesn't matter. Gender, just terrible, scary noodle creature. Scary noodle creature. So, yeah. The other thing they had, there was, like, a leper, which I guess, which you know, also could be pretty scary. But there was some hokey scenes. Like, I remember when the leper attacked the kid with hypochondria. The leper, however they set up that costume, it appeared to not provide a lot of very good mobility. So as the guy was, like, jumping after the kid, you could tell that the costume was kind of restricting his movement, because he just had that look of, like, a man in a costume, which kind of cracked me up. But, in a positive way, because I'd seen the old film, and, like, back in the day, that used to happen all the time. Like, in modern film, you don't see that hardly as often anymore. A lot of times they work really hard on making it to where they can move in a convincing way, or at least in a way that's sufficiently creepy. But this was just honestly like man in costume chases boy, and it was kind of reminiscent. But given the setting, it was appropriate. And besides, Pennywise is a crazy clown, so maybe he did it on purpose. I don't know. But the leper wasn't very scary, especially after the man in costume chases boy scene. I'm trying to remember. Let's see, what else did they do? Man, I don't know how many other, like, scary things that Pennywise turned into was really very memorable. A headless boy, but that kind of had, like, the zombie film thing going for it. You know, a little bit like Silent Hill with the jerky movements and the bizarre kind of chase sort of thing. And in this film too, it's really unclear, like, had Pennywise actually caught hold of anyone, might he have killed them? Because he wasn't able to, and it seemed like he was earnestly trying to kill the kids from time to time, but they got away because they ran into, you know, adults or, like, well-lit rooms or places where they felt more safe, which reduced his power. And, yeah, I don't know. Like I say, in the original film, it was all kind of fictional, and the only time he could catch you was when the actual physical spider was there, I guess. And that was kind of the hook, is like the kids never knew when they were in real danger or when they were just dealing with delusions, or hallucinations, that is. But in this case, like, Pennywise came across as like a real physical entity. And they did actually have, at one point, they were like, it's just an illusion, like, it's all fake. And so they stood down some of the fakery. But then Pennywise himself, like, lifted a child up and, like, he, like, cut the kid open. Like, he just, like, gouged up his stomach. And they were like, oh, maybe not all of it is fake. Maybe some of it is physically harmful. So, yeah, Pennywise himself, I think, was physically real. And this is why I say there's some doubt as to whether or not it was a giant spider. I mean, I kind of joked at the end, like, oh, no, he was a giant spider. But I like him better as a horrific demon clown. I apologize for not really telling, like, a narrative story is exactly how this goes. The problem with it is that it's not really a narrative story specifically about one thing. Like, there's not really kind of a point A to point B. All I can say is, like, the kids are terrified by a clown over and over and over again, and then they kill the clown. Because that is what happens, and there's kind of a big thing. But it's really more about the growth of the individual characters. You've got these different sorts of fears and problems between each kid. One of them is, like, new to the town. And his kind of whole thing is that he gets accepted into this group, and then he makes friends, you know, and now he's got friends, and so he's kind of like finding acceptance in a group, and that was his story. And then another one, you've got this this black kid who, like, lives outside of town, I guess, but he delivers meat into town, and, like, he works at a farm, and they butcher sheep, and so what he's sort of like a shedding of innocence story, where, like, his family is trying to teach him, you know, all right, you got to kill the sheep, and then we butcher the sheep, and we sell the meat. And the kid's, like, afraid to kill the animals because he sympathizes with the sheep, and his dad is like, you know, one of these days, like, it's going to be you underneath this thing. Like, you need to just get used to this. And so they have these scenes kind of tie in. And so the growth of the characters is actually pretty nice. Like, for example, like, the dad tells him that, and then at one scene in the movie, like, the bully actually pins him down, and he's got, like, the kids go to fight Pennywise, and the meatpacking kid brings his like sheep killing gun, and so this bully takes the sheep killing gun and puts it, like, between his head and is like, oh, I'm gonna kill you now, fool. So the kid knocks the gun away, and, you know, anyway though, so yeah, so they kind of have these sort of things going on, these development. The girl has this terrible reputation for, like, oh, you're a slut, you're this, you're that, and her dad is like, you know, you're my little girl. And there's this sexual abuse, and her story is kind of about, like, getting away from that, you know, like, sort of finding a better core of people to be with who she can trust and rely on more, and then, like, pushing away her dad and this bad reputation. And so she kind of gets a fresh start. Her dad gets killed, and then she moves away to a new place, you know, to start over fresh, you know, without all this reputation and all the stuff that's been hanging around her neck. That's kind of her story, her growth. The hypochondriac kid finds out that he actually is not sick. His mom has just been making him take placebos, and so that way she can have an excuse to have him be inside or whatever under her watchful eye all the time. So she's just keeping him weak and whatever, and he kind of gets over this, like, you know, maybe I'm not really ill, like, maybe I'm fearing illness for no reason, and I need to be just more bold and more comfortable. So this is his personal growth, and I think the one who grows the least, like I say, I think in the original, this is the one who died because he never really confronted anything, or he never really grew into anything. But the kid with the glasses, who's, like, snarky and jokes a lot, I believe that he didn't really have a personal growth. He comes across as the main character a little bit. He's not really. It's about all the kids, but he comes across, I think, as the main character because he's the most mouthy, and that means that he gets some of the better lines. So you kind of look at him and you're like, oh yeah, this is the main character, because the main character always gets the best lines. But he's just the Joker, so he gets a lot of good lines because he's the Joker kid, and, you know, that's what the Joker gets. Let me see. The Jewish kid is about, like, you know, he's supposed to be reading the Torah. He doesn't get fleshed out very well either. He kind of winds up with the movie. He ends the movie fairly bitter. his thing was like his dad is just like, you're the rabbi's son and you can't even read from the Torah. Like, this is just a disgrace. Like, it's kind of like about him grappling with that, but he never really reaches his conclusion either. And again, in the original film, when they call this guy to be like, oh, Pennywise is back, he shoots himself. So he's another one who dies. He never really kind of gets past his arc, and so he dies. And in this new film too, he doesn't really get past his arc, and it feels organic though. I mean, that's the thing, is like if you look at how real life would work, not everybody gets over those hurdles in their life, and of course it doesn't necessarily kill you. I mean, you just move on, or you cope in whatever unhealthy way you cope. I mean, people are more resilient than that. You don't just get hung up on, like, the Freudian psychology thing is such total crap. You don't just get like hung up on like one trauma for such a point that it destroys you. You find ways to move on with your life and live as you live. So like in real life, you wouldn't have to necessarily get over the guilt of like your dad being like, oh, you're a terrible son. You just grow to resent your dad. That would be how that would work. And yeah. So yes, who's left? I think that's everybody. I think that's all the kids. And then there's the bullies. And the bullies, of course, they're just bullies. They're mean, they're weird. The bullies actually make a little bit more sense. I never understood, when I saw the original films, I never understood what the main bully's problem was. Like, he was such a dick to everybody, and then he got a hold of a knife, and he was like, I'm actually gonna kill people with this. And it was just like, man, like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you so vicious and vindictive? But you got to see into this bully's like home life a little bit, and his dad was like a cop. And his dad was like his kid was playing with his gun, and so the dad took it away, and then he was like, oh, you like playing with my gun, do you? And he like shot at his son's feet, and his like son like wet himself, and then his dad like made fun of him, he's like, see like a little bit of fear make a paper man crumble. And so the kid was just sitting there with his pants wet, and he goes and he kills his dad. And so, like, this guy just had problems. He was, like, dealing with abuse at home. He was mentally unstable. He'd grown to enjoy violence and hurting other people. And you kept seeing throughout the film, like, they fleshed out the bully so much better in the 2017 film. You kept seeing, like, him, like he's like, oh, I want to shoot this cat. I want to do this thing. He kept crossing the line. And the other bullies would, like, watch him do this. And they'd be like, man, like, dude, like, this is a bit far. And he'd just be like, shut up, man. Like, I'm going to shoot the cat. And, like, the other bullies were kind of afraid of him at times, because he would just, like, cross those lines, and then he would just be, like, insistent on it. Like, they were like, I can't let go of the cat. Like, the cat won't stay up here. Like, he's like, put the cat up on the deal. I'm going to shoot the cat. And then he's like, just hold the cat. Just hold it. And, like, the bully looks, like, really unsure. He's like, just going to hold it? Like, can you shoot it while I'm holding it? Like, that's... So, yeah, I don't know. You don't get to, like, be introduced to the other bullies very much. But, like I say, another thing that kind of implies that they're not going to have the second movie is, like, in the second film in the original series, that bully actually makes a return. Like, he winds up going to a mental hospital, and he just stays there most of his life, and then he escapes, and he, like, stalks the adults. But I'm pretty sure they killed him in this movie. I'm not sure. Like, you don't actually, like, see him physically die, but they do knock him into a very, very deep well. Like, he just, like, plunges down, and, like, you don't see him. And I don't think a human could normally survive that kind of situation. So, probably, he's probably dead. Not that it matters. Again, if they do a second film, it's the worst part of the story. It's the not as attractive part of the story. But yeah. So overall, I think the film did a pretty good job. I had a good time seeing it. I don't know. Some people have been saying, "Oh, best film of the year," and some people were like, "Oh, it totally missed the point." And I think both these people are mistaken. It was a good film. I recommend it if you're thinking about something to go see, and you just kind of want to be entertained. Good film. Enjoyed it. I don't think it's actually better than the original, but I don't think the original is better than this either. I think that they both have their pros and cons. They both have their charms. They both do a good job with the story. They're compelling, and it doesn't hurt if you've already seen the original movie, unless for whatever reason you decide that the original is so much better than the new one that you just can't enjoy it. But if you just kind of take them both as like separate works, separate adaptations, they're both good adaptations, I guess. They both tell a good story. The characters are likable. There's a lot of charming scenes. Fun film. Had a good time. Yeah. So I suppose that'll be it for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.